the statics thing. And you get rid of all this. So, any questions on the on the homework? Did I opened 3, didn't I? I think I did. They're open automatically at a certain point, but okay. Let me do this. Thing will get brighter in a minute. So if there aren't any questions about the homework, I'll check the whether I opened it, and then what I'll do is I'll go ahead into the next material. Wow, that's nasty. Okay, so I was at the bottom of this page, which the dot product was there, but then he's got to have, okay, then fundamental problems and problems. Let's look at a problem that so these 3 problems are associated with, oh my God, that's really sticky now. What the heck is this? So here's a particular problem associated with this. And here, let's go ahead and look at the I don't want my hand to be glued to the table, so I don't know what this is. But look at it. Wow, that's embedded dirt from the 1900s. Yeah. Okay. So the problem itself says determine the magnitude of the projection of the force onto the U and then the V axis. Now this is kind of a weird thing, but it's okay. So there's 2 or 3 ways you can do it. One is just take, this one is 100 times cosine of the 45 degrees. And this one, since it's projected onto, notice he has this 90 degree, so it's like you took a light that sends rays down this direction, like a light bulb here. It sends rays down that and it produces the shadow on this line right here. So this is nothing more than 100 times the cosine of 15 degrees, because that's the angle you projected through. I don't know that I want to go do that, but let's span down and see how he came up with this, because it should be just simply those 2 things. And the V is 100 times cosine of 45, and that one's 70. That's this one. And that's that one. And then the next one should be the 100 times the cosine of 15. And so then, he's done it for us, so we don't want to worry about that. But then let's kind of span down. It looks like he has a blue line there, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Okay, so he talks about, okay, so notice this right here. Okay, so he has a blue line. Okay, he solves the problem, right? Then he goes down, he has this blue line, and he says, note, the projections are not equal to the magnitude of the components along the force acting found from the parallelogram law. They would only be equal if the u and v axis were perpendicular to each other. So, in other words, if you took this vector that he's got here, I don't know, and then added it, I'm not sure, let's see, if I did this, moved it to about right here, that looks like about that. Adding those two vectors would end up with another vector that is not that one. But it turns out if this and this were perpendicular, they would be the components. So that's kind of what he's saying. And so let's look at another one, which that one was pretty easy because you didn't have to set up a coordinate system or anything. Let's see if he's got one you have to set up a coordinate system. Oh, this is a good one. Okay. So this one's good because, here, we'll solve it in a second. First, let's find out what he's asking. The frame is shown in that picture. Determine the magnitudes of the component parallel and perpendicular to AB. Okay, this is a good one. Okay. So we want to know parallel and down the thing and perpendicular to it. So let's go down here and find AB. So I'm assuming I got that right. So if you look at AB, okay, it's a vector that goes from here all the way out to here. So let's see how we can get there. Okay, he's got a 2 and a 6 and a 3 to get from A to B. Then we got to make sure we get them in the right combination. So if I were looking at a vector A to B, it would be, I'm going to go out the X first. So if I went out the X, I would be going out 2I. And then, let's say I'll go out the Y second, so I'd go down to 6. And then I'd go up 3. So that's the vector right there. If I want to know the component of this thing in that coordinate, I need to unitize this. Here's what I'm saying. Let's take a simple case where I have a vector that is f is equal to 3i plus 4j. And I have a vector here that's, I'll say this vector A is, I'm going to be ridiculous and say 1000i. And I want to know this vector in that direction. Then I really don't want to do this particularly. I kind of want to do this dotted with the unit vector going in the direction of A. Now let's make sure that he's asking that. Let me roll back up and look at the words. Determine the magnitude of the component of this force parallel and perpendicular to the member. So it's along AB, but you don't have to dot the AB. You're supposed to dot the unit vector. So in fact, the unit vector here, the unit vector along A would just be I. And if you're dotting those two, you would find out that would be 3. Okay, so this is 3, and this is 4, because that's the 3, and this is the 4. So in fact, what I need to do, you take that and make the unit vector out of it. So how do we do that? The unit vector AB, okay, so what is 2 squared plus 6 squared plus 9 squared? I'm really scared here. 36 plus 49. Well, what is that? Shoot, I'm not sure this is going to work out to be a... Here. Well, I'll do it without that. Well, okay, I'm mistaken. It does. Okay. Okay, it's 11. So in fact, the length of that member from here to here is 11. And so the unit vector is equal to 2 over 11, I plus 6 over 11, j plus 3 over 11, k. Now if I want to know this vector, the f, dotted the component that runs along there, I would say f dotted, what did I call that? UAB, which would be equal to f, which is 300j, dotted with 2/11 I, 6/11 j, 3/11 k. Does it even? It doesn't add up to an even number. So that dot product would be 300 times 6 over 11. Okay.
For the magnitude,
Uh-huh.
9 squared, but it's supposed to be 3 squared.
Oh, it's supposed to be 3 squared. I was about to say that. Okay. So what does that end up being? It doesn't end up being 11. Let's see what that. Let's see if we get out of that. Well, it gave me 7. That still doesn't end up being. Shoot. It still doesn't end up giving me a integer there. Okay. Shoot. Well. Okay. Well. Huh. Well, no, wait a minute. Just hang on a second. That can't give me an integer. No, it doesn't give me an integer. So I'm a little disconcerted here. 1/7. Let me see what he got, because I think, I guess he could get it. I don't know. Okay, so that's a good picture right there. I like that picture because he's showing you the vector that goes along that line, which he's calling FAB, along that line, and then he shows you the perpendicular to it. But let's see if we can find what he got for the FAB. There's his unit vector. I didn't work that out. 2, 6, 3, and he did that, and I got that as 7. So I didn't work that number and that number and that number out, but that's that and that. And then you need to dot it, but where did he dot? Okay, well it is that. Okay. The reason I paused is because I thought he had designed the number to get an integer here without it. And so the answer is no, he didn't design the problem. So that's what made me pause there for a minute. So many times he does that in this book where he works these out. So for example, he chose a 2 and a 6 and a 3 so he can get an integer out of here. And that makes it easy to present this stuff. But I kind of thought maybe he would multiply times like 700 and then get 600 out. But, that might, I don't know. So then the question is, okay, so we both got the same number, which was 257, and I got 1/7, but he just truncated it 0.1. So that's the value there. This is the part that I was talking about before. If you look at this vector real close, get it to right there. If you look at this vector real close, And I got the mouse right in the way. Then you've got a vector. It can be broken down such that that vector has a component that runs right along this pipe right here. But then there's a perpendicular component. Now think about this. This blue could be spun around in many different directions. If you do, this vector would change its direction as well. This one would not. But if I move this blue one around, that vector would remain in that direction. But this one could spin around, it could point up, could point down, depending on what happened here. So the question is, how do you actually find that? And I'll show you a different way. I'll show you the way he does it. And then I'll show you a kind of a weird way. Okay, and let's look at this and do it both ways. First, I'll do it his way. If you have anything in which I don't know that he should have put that, then you could figure out the length of this vector, which was 300 squared, is equal to the length of that one, which was 257.1 squared, plus the length of that one squared. Well, that means you can move this one over here, and 300 squared minus 257.1 squared, take the square root, and that's going to be the magnitude of that thing. Now let's see if I can figure that out. And without a reflection on there, let's see if we can figure that out. He says 157.6 roughly. Now I'm going to show you a different way of getting that in a second, but let's double check and let's see. Okay, that's the first answer. Then he's going through. Oh, he does find that. No, he doesn't. Wait, expressing FAB. Oh, he does it. Okay, so, all right. So he does do it both ways. Okay, so I'm sorry. I thought he didn't. He got 155. I got 157. 300 squared minus 257.1 squared. So I don't know. Maybe the phone didn't read that number right. 257.1, 300 squared, the square root. I don't know. I got two. Oh, I copied it down wrong. Sorry. It is 254.6. Sorry about that. So it says plainly 254. And I have no idea why I converted it to 257. My mistake. But what he's done initially is this. He's done something weird. Okay, so here I'll take the 257.1. That's the magnitude. And what I'll do is I'll bring the picture back up and show you the different way, which actually he does do. So what he is going to do is he's going to take. Okay, so in this picture, you realize that FAB, the vector, plus this vector, F perpendicular, has got to be equal to the F, which actually the F was 300J. Now the key is you can figure this one out. The FAB is 257 times the unit vector here. So it's 257.1 times a vector which goes exactly in that direction, which is 2/7 I plus 6/7 J plus 3/7 K plus F perpendicular is equal to 300J. Now instead of me doing this up, I'll show you where he does it on the page. So essentially it's a vector addition. So if you want to back out the exact direction of this vector, you already have this one, and now you have this one. You can basically say this one is the sum of these two, and then move the equation around so you can get the perpendicular vector. So let me roll down. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm gonna roll up. Okay, so here he writes the 257 times this, and this, and this, which these three numbers are these three. He gets the actual FAB vector in component form. Then on the page down, he rolls down, and then he subtracts the two of them, if I can get it to roll down. So he takes the 300. So what he's doing is he's taking the F minus the FBA. F minus the FBA moves to the other side. Takes the 300 minus that vector that he found a minute ago, and he gets that. Now he can take the magnitude, that squared plus that squared plus that squared, to get his 255. But then he says its magnitude can either be determined from this vector or by using the Pythagorean theorem. So you've got two ways to check that. And so you end up that that's the 155, which is the 155 should be that number squared, and that number squared, and the square root of it. So you got two ways to find that magnitude. And I guess when I started this, I thought that he wasn't going to do the component form. So that's why I thought he didn't, but he did. So that's good. That's the complete way to do it. And so that's the end of that problem. And it's getting, what is the time? For some reason, what?
20 after.
Oh, gosh. Well, the time is different. Oh, it is the same. What the heck? I don't know. Okay. So the other thing you can do with these is this. If you look at him, he has the angle here. I mean, he has the force that's pulling on that blue. Oh, okay. Let me get all the other stuff off here. And he's wanting to know the angle. So there's dot products come in with angles a lot of times. Okay, let me slide down. Okay, so he says the pipe is subject to the force 80 pounds. Determine the angle between F and the pipe segment if in the projection of F along this segment. So the first thing, I don't know whether you want to address the first part of the problem or the second, but let me just say, if you have two items and you're looking for the angle, all you got to do is express this vector and that vector. I don't know what you want to call them. B to C and B to A. Okay, so let me do that. So if I express them that way, and B to A is a vector dotted with, B to C is the other vector, then B to A times the magnitude of B to C times the cosine of the angle, which he has decided to call it theta. So the question is, if I can find BA, if I can find BC, did I do that right? Yeah, BA and BC, I can just dot those two and then find their lengths. And I can do this. I can just say cosine, which actually, well, I'll do it this way first. Cosine of theta is equal to BA divided with BC divided by the magnitude of both BA and BC. And then I move this over and take the inverse cosine, I'll get back my theta. So now I've got to find the BC and the BA. And so it'll take me a minute, but let me do the BA first. So to me, what I'll do, okay, so it takes a minute for me to kind of visually see this. I think the pipe is dropped down here. So if I'm going to draw a vector, if I'm going to progress down the coordinates to get from B to A, I need to run up one, Okay, I'm running up 1 in the K. Then I'm going to run backwards 2 in the I. And it looks like I'm running backwards 2 in the J. Now, if I want to do B to C, okay, this will take me a minute. It looks to me, and I may be wrong, but it looks to me like they're saying the C line passes through the top of here, touches here, and it's touching these 2 points. So it looks like I need to come up 1, and then go down there 3. So I need to come up 1, and then I got to go back 3 in the J. Did I get that right? I don't think I have to go up and down. Wait a minute. I don't think I have to go up and down the X coordinate, or out and back the X coordinate, from what I see. I don't know. I mean, sometimes you have to think about what you're looking at, and it's also kind of interesting. You're kind of having to see a 3D item from 2 dimensions. So it is helpful to be able to do that. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do something really weird. I'm going to say, I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to try. BA would be minus 2I minus 2J. I doubt this will work, but it's up. Put the dot indicating a dot product. If it doesn't work, that's okay. I can actually dot it myself, but I'm intrigued as to whether or not, and I'm going to put the magnitude underneath it, but I just want to see if this works. It should be interesting. We couldn't recognize your problem. Okay. Okay. That's okay. So then I'll say that's going to be this up here, and I'll deal with it later. So what I've got is 2 times 0 plus a minus 2 times that. So that would be 2 times 3 plus 1 times 1, or 1, over the square root. And I can tell that's 6, and now it's 7. So I can go ahead and say that is the number 7. And it's going to be over the square root of 2 squared plus 2 squared plus 1 squared times, I'm doing this so I can take a picture of it, square root of 1 squared plus 3 squared. And let's see what that comes up with. I'll retake the photo, but I'm actually retaking a different photo. It might get it. I think it got it. It says my number is 0.737865. Now, if I want to, I can go into here, 0.737865, and do an arc cosine. What did I do wrong? 0.737865. Arc cosine. I don't know what happened there for the first time. So it came back and told me the angle was about 42.45 degrees. Now I'm going to go check that one first. And then I'm going to go look and see what the other part of the problem I wanted was. And I probably could have done them differently had I known that, but it's too late now. 42.5, which that's about what I got, 42.45. Now let me go see what the other thing he was asking about. Determine the angle. Oh, okay, I did that. And the projection of F along this segment. That's the projection of F along a. Oh, okay, that's good. So they are related. You know what? I'm going to slide and try to line those back up. Ooh, perfect. So he wants to know the projection of that along there. So this is kind of weird, but not that weird. Okay, so let me do, okay, so I got F. I want to know F, the vector F, dotted with U along the vector from B to A, so that vector. Well, interestingly enough, this vector F is 80 times the vector, that unit vector that goes along B to C. Okay, so let's think about those two for a minute. And then let's do this. Here's what we're going to do. This is weird. So I'm going to take this vector and put it in here. And I'm going to say the vector that goes along that segment is this, which is equal to 80 times UBC dotted with UBA. Now, if I dot those two vectors, what you find is that is the unit vector BC, the magnitude, and the magnitude of UBA, and the cosine of the angle between them, 42.45. Why? Because that's what that is. So all I got to do is multiply 80, times the cosine of that 42.5. Let's see if I can get that back up. Which actually becomes that, which actually becomes 80 times 0.737865, 59. So the component along UBA is about 59. Yeah. If he's going to throw away a digit, it's going to be a 0. And so what he does, here's what he'll do. He goes down and found the RBC, RBCBA. He gets the angle, and he does a projection. But what he's doing is UBA. Okay, he actually went out and found the coordinates. I don't even need to do that. And then you take the dot product, and you get your 59. And that's the answer there. So you're taking that dot, but he went back and did it, but I went back and recognized that this equation, if I have another vector, think about this, if I take this magnitude, BA over the magnitude of BA times BC over the magnitude of BC, that's equal to the cosine theta. Well, that is, by definition, the unit vector along BA, and that is the unit vector along BC. And those two are what ended up in here. So if I just take the cosine of the angle, which actually the cosine of the angle was that, and so I multiply that times 80 and I get the 59, which is what he got. However, you know, what he did was just totally fine, and actually may have been better than what I was doing. Man. Let me see what else I can clean here. should get extra pay for cleaning. Golly, what is this? Wow, there's all kinds of in here. Wow, that's lovely. I was wondering why my hand, I came in here one time and I put my hands on the keyboard and my keyboard stuck to my hand. And I actually lifted it off the thing. It was wild. No wonder the computer doesn't work half the time. Wow. How do you just keep doing this? And it's just so much junk in here. Anyway. Okay. So is this kind of making sense? I'll just leave all that there. That's a prize. Either it's making perfect sense, and I need to go faster, or oh, okay. So these are some of the fundamental problems. I think we're done in this chapter because I'm right at the end, and then there are problem sets, and then we're into equilibrium particles. So let me spend about 10 minutes here, because that's all I need to spend here, and then just set it up. Okay, so let me kind of explain it like this. We were doing, kind of a small review here for a second. Somewhere like a few days ago, or maybe a week ago, or whatever, we were doing a thing where we were taking two vectors or three, and we were adding them together. So we had a vector A, vector B, and we were adding them together, A plus B. And those were fun, but what we were doing is we were just adding them together. So now why would we want to add them together? Well, there's a reason to add them together, and the reason comes out of this section. So the first thing is, if you remember back, sum of the forces equal mass times acceleration. Acceleration is a vector, and forces have to be a vector. But if nothing's moving, then it's called statics. Which means you have nothing on the right-hand side. Because it's sitting still. You don't want your bridge to move. If it starts moving, that probably means that people are falling through it. So he's saying sum of all the forces acting on a particle have got to be, the sentence has got to be zero. Oh. The next thing he talks about is the free body diagram. This is where imagination comes in. Oh, then he goes into springs. I don't know why he does that right here, but we'll go ahead and oblige a little bit. So on this, he's got some springs. You've seen that before. F is equal to Ks. Where's your force? Here's S. And if it's a linear spring, that's just the slope of K. And so if it's unstretched, it has no force. You start stretching it, it starts having a force. Then there's cables and pulleys. Usually, we're assuming there's no friction here, or no binding of the pulley, so the tension on either end is the same. If the object is not moving. And we're in statics, so it's not supposed to move. And then you got something called smooth contact. That's like a wheel, and maybe a couple more too, in which if you pull this up, there's not a friction force making it slow down. Now it would be if it was a box. You pull it up in incline. But if you got a wheel, like a pulley, you're okay. And now, okay, so he may have a couple more. Oh, procedure for a free body diagram. So what is a free body diagram actually? I've heard it described many different ways, but free body diagram kind of implies you set the object free of its supports. And replace them with with the equivalent load. How about just equal sign? Equal loads. So he has this supporting and this supporting, and he also has the weight down here. And what he's done is he said, well, if I clip that, take it off, that cable is producing that tension, and this cable is producing that tension. And this weight, which is not, that's the thing. There are two types of forces. There's a surface force and a body force. A body force occurs because of gravity, so you don't see it physically on the drawing. You know it weighs something. You know to find approximately where the center of gravity is, and you put that force there. You don't see it. Visually, you don't see a body force. Surface forces you always see. There's something connecting it. If the ground was right here, that surface would be putting a force on the surface of the object. But we don't have a ground here, so he didn't put a force there. So in fact, you remove it from its supports and then draw a vector diagram on it. That's very beneficial. A lot of people skip this step, but I would have to say that at least 40 to 60% of the people that skip that step usually start messing up when they're starting to add their forces together because they forget one. So if you just take a few seconds and redraw, it doesn't have to be that perfect. It can just be a circle with some lines in it. That would be fine. That free body diagram helps you in order to be able to start not working on this one, but to work on this one. And in here, you would say sum of the forces equals 0 means that the tension in A, whatever vector that is, plus the tension in B, whatever vector that is, plus the weight of the object, all have to equal 0. Now you just break these three things and it becomes a vector addition. It's just that simple. So what you'll see in a minute, which I probably should just scroll down, is that there's some of the forces in the X, some of the forces in the Y, and then there's some of the forces in the Z, and then this there's no Z, it's in the plane. But he probably will say that maybe in the next section. I don't know. Okay, so now he has examples. Let me hit the coplanar force section. There's where he starts breaking it apart. He says he has it in a plane only. So his sum of the forces is broken into an X component and a Y component. So here's a marble, whatever. I don't know what this is. So you have the X component of this one, and then the X component of that one, the X component of this one, and then the X component of that one. So this and this have to equal that, this and this plus this and this. In other words, they all add up to be zeros. And same thing with the Y component. So you can break these into components, and that's okay. Sometimes it's beneficial to do that because you can work your way through the problem quicker. And so you say sum of the force in the X, sum of the force in the Y equals 0. That, by the way, gives you two equations right there. And then there's the same picture, I think. And let's see. Just 5 more minutes. Let's see. First, let's see where I'm at. Fundamental problems. I think we should stop there because then we're going into 3-dimensional force systems. So we'll do. Oh, I should have pushed this button. Okay. Let me just spin through here real quick. Yeah, there's a good set of problems right here. We will spend a little bit of time in this 2 dimensions. So what I'll do is work a bunch of problems on Monday that are in this part right here. There's a bunch. There's a lot in here to work. So I'm going to spend like an extra day on this part working these problems because there's something interesting out of all these problems that translates really easily into the 3 dimensions. So I'm going to spend a little time working an extra problem. Then I'm going to jump into 3 dimensions after I show you kind of a behavior that occurs in all of these to make it simpler. So I guess what we'll do is we'll go 5 minutes early, and then we'll pick it up. Oh boy, I did a terrible job. I have the camera pointing off to the right. Uh-oh. Well, nothing's perfect. I may start bringing my own computer because Dynamics was cut out the other day, Fluids was cut out. The computer sometimes doesn't connect, and I don't know. I may start doing that in the future because this is really kind of annoying. Okay, I'm done. Unfortunately, sorry if you're watching the stream. The stream is crappy.